Michael Coxon is the Managing Director of North Sails Australia, and he's the busiest man prior to the Hobart race in the sail loft. So what's happening in this loft today, Mike?
Well, in fairness, I'd say my team are the busiest people. They've been working 12-hour days for the last 2.5 months, which was compounded by both Loyal and Wild Oats ordering their spinnakers a bit later than we had planned. We like that to be a winter project, and they both ended up being made in November and December.
So what sales have you made for the boats this year?
Well, we estimate about 30% of the fleet have North Sails. Some of them are supplied within Australia, and some are boats that have come from far away, such as Comanche. Although that's all part of the North Group, that's Kenny's responsibility, not mine. But we've built sails from some of the smallest boats through to the super maxis. Everybody takes interest in the maxis, but we really take pride in looking after the smaller end of the fleet. It's just as important. In fact, they're sea for a lot longer than the big boats.
Indeed. So can you take us through what actually happens when you order a sail from North Sails? Maybe a 3DO?
Yeah, well, it depends on what sort of sail it is, whether it's what we call a panel sail or a 3DL or a 3DI sail. But the orders go, the salesmen go out and measure the boat and take the order, measure the boat, and then it goes to a master scheduling. The first process in scheduling is in our own design office, where we make the decision if it's going to be made locally or do we have it made by our parent company and then shipped in. So often, if we have an inventory of sails or a number of sails for one boat, the sails may all be built in a different manufacturing facility, and they all arrive on the same day and get delivered down. They're all built to the same, what we call Blue Book standard. We manufacture here around about 25% of our annual turnover, and the rest we import. We employ around 25 in the loft here. If we were to manufacture everything here, apart from the fact we don't have the technology, we'd be employing around 70 people, which would be a bit of a nightmare. So it's a really nice business model, the North model, where we all help each other, and it's a united effort.
What about a sail like Loyal's spinnaker? How does that get made?
Well, that's an interesting one. That was a special project where we worked with the owner, Anthony Bell, who wanted to look at a new material. So we developed a new material for that process at our cloth department. And then that was something like a 4-month process to manufacture the material. And then we import the material into here, and then we cut it here. The sail's actually designed by J.B. Braun, who's one of the North Sail designers. He's assigned, most of his time is assigned with the America's Cup. He looks after the Oracle sail designs there, and he's the designer we selected to work with Perpetual Oil, because he's had dealings with the boat in the past.
What about Wild Oats' mainsail?
Wild Oats' mainsail, yes, well, that's designed by Chris Williams, an American designer, again working with our team, and he's done a lot of the working sails for Wild Oats in the past, so it was just a natural progression to go with Chris, and again he's a part of the international North design team. We also use Burns from North Sails New Zealand, Burn Fellow. He's the Team New Zealand designer, and he does the downwind sails, and Chris Williams does the upwind sail design.
What about Nevada? Tell us about Nevada, what happens there?
In Nevada we have 2 plants there. It's started with the 3DL plant some 22, 23 years ago, and it's grown and grown, and now we've got 2 plants that are about 3 minutes apart, and very large factories. And the one plant is the original plant that has the full-size mouldings in them, so we have 3 full-size 3-dimensional mouldings in the flying shape of the sails. And the second plant is where we prepare and basically produce 3DI materials, which are a wet layup, pre-impregnated wet layup, that then gets taken in a refrigerated truck over to the other plant and then put over the full-size moulds. The moulds are basically, they start life being flat, and then the sail designer inputs the design to the flying shape. So the mould over a 3-minute process will go from a flat sheet to taking the flying shape of the sail, and then the pre-impregnated materials, 3DI material, are laid over the top and then heat set.
So the flat platform is all hydraulically worked, is it?
That's correct, yeah. If you look under it, it's unbelievable. It's just rows upon rows of little hydraulic levers and arms and so on. It's a pretty impressive plant if you ever get to go and visit it.
The material itself is just the threads, is it?
Yeah, well, the 3DI, in simple terms, the 3DI process is we actually reverse standard materials. In other words, materials, whether it be carbon or whether it be aramid or Dyneema, normally comes in what we call bundles, which are twisted. We actually reverse that process and lay them out straight. So they're combed out straight, so every filament becomes down to being smaller than a human hair, is then laid down, and in doing it that process you don't get any crimp. When you have a bundle or a twisted yarn, and you may have hundreds of individual filaments in that yarn, they have what we call crimp. In other words, they don't all take up the load at the same time. So as such, they'll start to slowly load, and that's when you get stretch in the sail itself. By going to the 3DI process, one of the great advantages, we can equally put the load over every fibre, and in doing so you have far less stretch in the membrane, and we can actually make a stronger and lighter membrane because we can only need to put the filaments where they're needed in the sail. Where if you take what we call a string sail, or which has now become the standard like a 3DL sail, when you start a bundle of yarn in one corner, you must continue until it exits another corner. So often there is excess yarn that's actually not helping you structurally.
And what about 3DI Raw?
3DI Raw is our latest development. The 3DI process has been going on now for around about 8 years, and it's been around 3 years now commercially available. In the time leading up to that, we worked with selected clients and did a lot of testing there. And the standard product has what we call a very light polyester woven layer on both sides, just to protect these very fine filaments, and they make the sail more robust. As the market's gone towards wanting lighter sails and has learned to look after the sails better, we have actually stripped the outside layer off both sides, which is not there for structural reasons, it's only there for abrasion, and then coated the filaments and with a resin, so it makes a lot lighter sail and a lot more responsive sail, so for a same shape holding ability. So it's proved to be really successful already.
Strong?
Very strong, yeah, very strong. It's not as strong as the ones with the outside fibres on it or sheetings on them, because they're there just to give more abrasion. But in the right hands, while sailing the boat, they are strong, no problem at all. And because one of the big advantages of 3DI is that we have been able to include Dyneema, some people will call that spectra, in the layup. Now, it's been a challenge for many, many years to try and work Dyneema into a laminated sail because it's by nature it's a very greasy, very slippery material, and as such it hasn't been in the past been able to bond successfully into sails. We have been able to come up with a system of glues that will actually allow us to work Dyneema in with whether it be Kevlar or aramid and carbon, and we can mix all three together. So we get a lot more durability out of the sails. An example of that would be Dave Forbes is going in this Hobart race in his yacht Merlin. In fact, Dave's not, he's actually just had an operation, but his crew are going to take Merlin, the 50-footer, to Hobart, which is a racer cruising boat, and he had one of the experimental mains that we provided for him 6 years ago, still the original sail, and it's done over 1,000 sea miles. 1,000 sea hours, I should say, and that's a pretty good testament to 3DI. And Dave is a past gold medalist, world champion sailor. If the sail was still in perfect shape, he'd replace it.
Indeed. Look, in that case, Comanche, which has 3DI raw, would their sails be 15% lighter than the other boats?
Yes, they will be lighter than 3DI sails that have got the taffeta on both sides. Yeah, that is correct.
And they wouldn't be worried about the weather forecast with the big heavy night coming up with the brand new boat?
No, it's not. It's not an issue with sailing along at all. You just need to be more careful in your handling on the decks. It's more just abrasion. And if you did get some abrasion in it, the way the membranes are made, they don't get catastrophic failures. They tend to just wear a hole in them and just patch them as you're sailing along. So it's not an issue.
What about you personally? Are you going to Hobart this year?
Yes, I'll be going on Perpetual oil. I've done my last 3 Hobarts on Perpetual oil. Unfortunately, I missed out on last year's because I had an illness just before the race, but before that did the 2011, which we won. And yes, I'm looking forward to that. And it's a really interesting program, the Perpetual oil program, because it's combining both what we call celebrities, high-profile Australian sports people usually, together with some very good quality amateur crews, and also a sprinkling of professional crews in there. So, and it's all about raising money for charity. The Loyal Foundation donates every cent that it earns to children's hospitals, and its founder Anthony Bell is very passionate about that. And a lot of us are involved with the project because we see the good it does. So it's quite exciting to be involved in that side of it.
And also, just going back to the 3DI raw, will that filter down to other classes, down to maybe the MC38s or something like that?
Well, it already has. Last week I won the MC38 regatta with Neville Crichton, and he's got the first set of 3DI raw.
What about cruising sails? What goes cruising boats?
I don't think that I necessarily recommend it for a cruising product because, again, it's longevity. So there's a balance always with lightness and longevity. That's common sense. So I think for a cruising boat, I would prefer to have the covers on both sides. They're only very light polyester covers, but it's actually the glue and the cover together is what adds to the weight. But still, you're looking at that sail being an equivalent weight of a 3DL sail, which were already the lighter sails in the marketplace previous to 3DI. So our goal has always been to make 3DI the same weight as 3DL, right, rather than lighter, to make sure we got the longevity. And all that's happening is a natural progression. As we use the product more, we've all gained a lot more confidence in it. We now can start to strip out some weight.
Well, your company's leading the field as far as this technology is concerned. What have you got planned for the future?
Well, basically, if you look at sailmaking history, the last big step forward after when we went to radial panel sails back in the 70s and 80s, well, in the 70s we sort of went leech cut vertical sails, and then in the 80s we went to warp radial panel sails. Then came 3DL. And 3DL has been the market leader, unquestionable market leader for the last 23 years. So 3DI is the logical step. It uses the same moulds. We're the only three-dimensional flying moulded sails that are built on a mould to the design of the shape. And it's a logical process. The great advantage of 3DI is that it cannot delaminate. And because there is no lamination, it is actually made in one piece, just like a high-tech construction of a boat. So if you're building the other hulls of the boat, they're pre-impregnated in one piece, so that there's no mylar. So you eliminate the gluing of a solid mylar to a fabric to a mylar again. That's where you get the delamination. These are all intricately one component. There's no lamination to another solid part.
Well, that should be good for mocha boats for the Vendée Globe and those sorts of races.
Yeah, well, I mean, if all of the Volvo boats right now have 3DI, so the whole fleet's 3DI. So if you can go around the world with 3DI, you can go anywhere.
Well, the Barcelona starts on the next weekend. Have they got into that?
Yes, yes, most definitely. In fact, about 3 or 4 years ago, the boat that won the Vendée Globe actually had 3DI. We didn't publicise it because it was experimental, and all the sails were painted with sponsorship logos, so nobody actually knew it had 3DI. We kept it very under wraps because obviously it was the ultimate testing platform, under crewed, over canvas, around the world sailing. So the very interesting point was that 3DI won the race, 3DL came second. The 3DI sails at the end of the race, the crew said we could start again tomorrow with the same sails. We couldn't say that about the 3DL.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, well, what is your pick as far as boats are concerned for the race?
Handicap or line honours?
Well, give us both.
Well, I think if I started with talking line honours, because it's also weather dependent. Well, both the line honours and the handicap is going to be very weather dependent. Weather's changed quite a lot over the last 3 days, so I haven't had an update today, so I'm not completely up to scratch with it. But I would be keeping an eye on the two boats. I think Comanche and Wild Oats. We're going to be obviously trying our hardest with Loyal. Loyal is a 10-year-old boat, and as such, we've got some weaker points in light airs, but we've done a lot to work on that. We've built a new spinnaker. It's the first time the boat's had a VMG running spinnaker put on it, and we were very pleased with the initial performance we've got out of that sail. It's opened up a whole new range of angles we can sail the boat to, which is interesting because all the Volvo people who've been involved with that boat in the past said you never want a running sail, it'll never work. Well, in the 2 times we've had it out in the ocean testing it, it's definitely working, and it's definitely made a big performance difference to that boat in VMG running, and that was her weak point before. So I think that if we have tough going, it'll suit in Perpetual oil. I think in the lighter conditions it's going to suit Wild Oats, and I think medium conditions are going to suit Comanche. So I would basically be looking at the weather forecast and seeing how it stays in. So we're hoping it keeps blowing and blows hard. Yeah. We're a very strong, very tested boat, and the other, obviously, Wild Oats is no better prepared boat than Wild Oats for this race. But her strengths are generally in lighter airs, and Comanche, her design I think suits more moderate conditions, and she's not tested in fresh conditions yet. I don't think there'll be any problem with the people. It's just that you'd always be a little bit nervous taking 100 footers feel like 200 footers when you first take them out. By the end of the race they feel like 50 footers. So if they get that far, I think they'll be able to have no problems at all.
What about the smaller boats? Because this is...
smaller boats, well, if it's a mid-size race, I'd sort of be looking at Matt Allen's Ichiban. It's had some recent modifications which seem to be all in the right direction. I think it did win non-handicap with the Solar's Big Boat Race, and that was very pleasing to see for both Matt and the industry, seeing the new boat get up there. And I think that medium-sized boats, I mean, you'd have to start looking at some of the TPs, the Coxon 50s. They're always a very competitive all-round boat, and then you can get down to some quite small boats. So it's, to me, it's too hard to pick this far out. I mean, I always look at Hobart races as I think that it's 50% preparation. I think it's 25% how well you sail, and 25% luck. So it just really depends on how the cards, and in the luck I put the weather, how the weather pans out for your particular boat, and what your forte is for your boat, strong points.
Was that big sail on that we saw at the Solus? Was that your big one?
Yeah. So in the Solus we used in anger Perpetual Oil's new VMG running spinnaker for the first time. That is 1,120 square metres. It's certainly the biggest sail we've ever produced in this sail loft. And arguably I would say the biggest racing sail in the world. And when I say racing sail, 100 footers are the biggest boats you can actually go in a race like the Hobart race. So I do believe it's the largest sail in this race. We were pleased with the performance when we first put up there on the first run. Unfortunately on the second run we had a problem with deploying, which was actually to do with the furling before that. So, and it's a little bit to do, we aren't a full professional boat, so we had a few people not on their normal jobs, and as such we didn't get a great furl, and it made us look a little bit silly for a while on the harbour there, but that's all part of preparing for the Hobart race. But it was important for us to use the sail because we learn as we go along, and that's all a part of the crew work. they're top-down furling sails, and the bigger you make them, the harder they are to furl.